Here I have a short novel or novella titled Identity, written by the great, amazing Milan Kundera. Originally published in 1998 and translated to English by Linda Asher, who has translated several works by Kundera. Reading the novel recently, again for the second time, what I was thinking about the most was a type of experience that I think this novel captures very well, very effectively. And I think for me, maybe for other people, this type of experience is really at the center of this, what this novel is doing, what this novel is inquiring or discovering, exploring. It is the type of experience that we usually describe as off, as something being off. It doesn't have to be something off in the environment. You could feel something being off in your own body. Maybe you're catching a cold, you're feeling under the weather, but not yet fully feeling a sickness or illness. But you feel like at first, before you cross the threshold of falling sick, at first you feel like, okay, something is not right. Something is off with me today. I can't concentrate maybe, or maybe my throat feels strange, or my voice doesn't sound like usual. Something is off. You also experience that in social situations. Like yesterday, I was speaking to a friend and colleague, and he was trying to be cheerful and happy, and he was trying his best to concentrate and keep our focus on positive subjects of conversation during lunchtime. But it was pretty obvious that he was like, something was going on in the back of his mind. He was preoccupied with something, and because he was trying to do that, something was off with his attempted smiles. Something was off with his attempted attention that he was trying to pay to that conversation, because that conversation was not, there was a total mismatch between what we were talking about and what was going on. And of course, I didn't want to intrude. I didn't want to ask questions. Maybe I should have, but it was not the time and place. So I played along, but it was very obvious to me that something was off, and I, just took note of that and just participated in what was going on. There's a scene from the first few pages of this book, Identity, where one of the main characters, perhaps the first of the two main characters, who is named Chantal, she goes into a restaurant, and she is interacting with the wait staff, and Kundera in a very subtle way describes her experience and describes the things that are off about her experience. For example, the wait staff are not paying attention to her. They don't seem to care that she is the customer there, that she is there to order a drink or food. Instead, they start talking to her about some TV show that they're arguing about. There's another scene where she is, again, I think in a cafe or a bar, and the music is too loud, or maybe it's a shop. I don't remember exactly. She was there for a brief period of time, and the staff in that shop or cafe, they were pretty rude to her, and they had a conversation. She had a conversation with one of the two men, and after the conversation was done, he didn't get out of her way quickly enough. So there was this a moment of almost threat that she was not. We almost don't feel safe about her presence in the situation that she is in. But of course, it doesn't resolve into some clarity, some kind of, okay, no, she is under threat, or the guy is maybe harassing her or something. No, it doesn't become about that. There's a dissonance in these experiences. So dissonance is another way of describing that offness. Something is off. So these are not the kind of dissonance that are resolved, but they are the kinds of dissonance that become the feature, or they are highlighted as an essential feature of experience. So it's something that if you pay attention to your experience, you realize that this thing that is off is always there. For example, when you look at people's eyes. Kundera, again, in this book describes, when you look at people's eyes, especially when you admire someone and you look at their eyes and you feel like, wow, they have such beautiful eyes. Look at those eyes. Look at the way he or she looks. So beautiful. And Kundera says in those moments, we don't pay attention to this mechanical process of blinking, this mechanical process of this act of, like, not act, but this mechanism of blinking itself is very crude. There's nothing sexy about that blinking process. And in order to stage the experience of looking into somebody's eyes and finding that very beautiful, there's certain dissonances that we have to push out of our conscious awareness. So this, what Kundera is doing here, is very different from, for example, what we find in horror films or horror stories. In a horror story, in the beginning, this offness is absolutely there. Like, there are a bunch of characters, or maybe one character who is in an environment, and the environment is, there's something off about the environment. And then the horror story resolves that by introducing the source of that dissonance. Let's say there's somebody in the house that we didn't know before, but now the character, this new scary character, or the scary event, the scary phenomenon, is introduced, and then nothing is off after that point. It's just pure threat, or just a pure bad situation that our character needs to get away from, escape from. But this is not the experience of something being off in Kundera, the way he handles it. It is inseparable from normal experience, the so-called normal experience. The book also brought to my attention, and I think it would bring to your attention if you read it in a similar way, the theme of relationships and friendships, and what relationships do for us, what relationships do to us, how our friendships support the sense of stability of our identity, of our life stories. So with our friends, we get together, and many times you just simply talk about your past, talk about your shared memories. And what you're doing when you're exchanging, when you bring those things back to awareness, is that you're making the stuff of our lives, the stuff of our experience, more solid, more stable, more manageable, maybe. It's almost like we need to conspire with our friends, with our group, to talk about certain things that are acceptable, pleasant, and not talk about certain other things that are relatively unpleasant to us. And I'm reminded here of Michael Billig's book on Freud, called Freudian Unconscious, How Conversations Create Freudian Repression. I think the title of the book is Freudian Repressions, not Unconscious. And how conversation creates the unconscious, something like that. And that is exactly about what I just described, that with a bunch of other people, you get together, and the way you conduct your conversation, the way you have your conversation, the way you guide your conversations towards some topics, towards certain themes, and away from some other themes, that is what the unconscious is. It's not something that only happens within a person's mind. Okay, let me quickly read a couple of passages from the book. One of them, the first one, this edition is, it appears on page 11 of this edition, and it is about what I just said, friendship and memory. So he writes, "This is the real and the only reason for friendship, to provide a mirror so the other person can contemplate his image from the past, which, without the eternal blah blah of memories between friends, would long ago have disappeared." And sometimes we don't, intentionally or unintentionally, we shy away from expressing our identity, and we go along with what other people expect from us. And this is a scene from later on, our main character, again, Chantal, and her sister-in-law, former sister-in-law. And she realizes, based on the way she's interacting with her, she's kind of annoying. This annoying sister-in-law who doesn't really know her, just talks too much, is surprised about why she doesn't spend more time with them. And so she suddenly realizes that she wasn't really herself when she was married to her former husband, when she was spending more time with her sister-in-law. It was really her own doing that she went along with the family's, with the former in-laws' expectations. So she's thinking, this is from page 108. Chantal was hearing her talk, hearing her sister-in-law talk, and thinking that she had lived too long with that family without displaying her otherness. So her sister-in-law was almost justifiably upset that after Chantal's divorce, she had broken off all ties with them. Why had she been so nice, so acquiescent during her married years? She didn't know herself what to call her attitude at the time. Docility, hypocrisy, apathy, self-control. So, very enjoyable short novel by Milan Kundera. Maybe it is not his greatest work, but if you start here and if you enjoy this novella and you like to read more, then you're going to be in for a very enjoyable series of reading experiences with immortality, the unbearable lightness of being, slowness, and so forth. This was really a strange book to read. But I'm glad I read it, especially I'm glad I reread it with my reading group, and I look forward to reading it in maybe in a couple of years. All right, what are you reading? What are your thoughts on experiences of something being off, the kind of dissonance that is either resolved or not resolved? Thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments, for liking and subscribing. Check out my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel, and I will speak with you in future videos. Thank you.